So this is this is the rules for my board game, Raxatoten. So the brief overview of my game. So you are stranded in a war-torn city that is caused by an interdimensional collapse by a research group finding out the answers to time travel. Everywhere around you is swarmed with the undead and the creatures from other dimensions, but there is a way to defeat your foes by collecting the obelisk. This will grant the player ultimate dominance over everything. Your objective is to reach the obelisk and claim it for yourself. It's everyone from themselves now. So setting up the game. So players must start by rolling the dice first, and whoever gets the highest amount on the six-sided dice sets the game up and becomes the captain. If the player gets the same dice number, then they must roll again until one person gets a higher number than the other. The captain hands out the player decks and sets out the level in a horizontal layout, vertically, or one by one. When the player give when giving out the player decks, the captain must give 10 red tokens each and place them on the health slots. The players have a choice whether to have either 2 gold tokens or 2 shield tokens, to which the captain hands them out to the player's choice. Once they have made their decision, they cannot change it back. We're setting up the store. Both players must follow the allocated rules for each zone for what the zone can and can't have and how many to have on each deck. For the mystery cards, the captain must place down the amount each zone will allocate and no more. Once that has all been set up, the players must roll the dice and whoever gets the highest score will go first to attack the enemy. So this is just a brief setup example of a visual representation, basically how it works. So your first step, players must roll the dice and see who gets the highest score to be the captain to set up the game. The second step, pick which zone you want to play on first. The third step, hand out the player decks to each player that is played. The fourth step, place 10 red tokens on each player deck. Fifth step, let the player choose they want either 2 shield or gold tokens and hand it to them. So your sixth step, pick out the mystery cards designated to the zone of your choice. Shuffle them and place them into the zone's specific layers. So the seventh step, roll again and decide who will go first in the match. So versing against enemies. Players will roll the dice, and whatever the outcome of the dice is, damages the enemy. Any weapon cards will automatically be applied on top of the damage the player has done with their dice roll. Once the player has done their dice roll, they can apply one power up that can help them in their turn. If the players do not kill the opponent in their turn, then they will be inflicted damage by how much the enemy does. When the player kills the enemy, and if they acquire currency from the defeated enemy, both players will get the same amount. If a player dies whilst versus an opponent, they will be out until either the other player reaches to the store or that they buy the player back, depending on the zone rules. If the player gets brought back from the store, they will spawn with all their health, but none of their weapons, downgraders, or perks, unless the player spends extra gold tokens to bring them back and keep their weapon/power ups. If the player does not beat the enemy within 3 turns, the enemy's remaining health will inflict damage onto the player. The player will have a 6-sided dice, and each number is how many the tokens the player takes off the enemy plus extra weapon/power up damage. If there is more than one enemy in the zone, they must take out the enemies with the lowest amount of health first, and then work their way up to the stronger opponents. The player can only verse one enemy at a time, and the enemies can only do the same too. Each enemy has a green health token bar that is set up on a separate platform. Each time the player rolls a number on a 6-sided dice, they will do damage to the enemy, which the captain takes the token off the enemy health. So as you can see from here, we have an example of what that looks like and the 6-sided die. It doesn't really matter what color it is specifically, as long as it's really allocated to the 6-sided dice, you are fine. So these in-game status. So you have the star slot here and the mystery slot there. The Ray Blaster deals 10 token damage for 2 moves worth 13 gold tokens. The AK-47 deals 3 token damage for 3 moves worth 5 gold tokens. The Tommy Gun deals 2 token damage for 3 moves worth 3 gold tokens. The MP40 deals 2 token damage for 2 moves, worth 2 gold tokens. The Blunderbuster that deals 4 token damage for 3 moves, worth 6 gold tokens. The Winchester Repeater deals 5 token damage for 4 moves, worth 8 gold tokens. The Abraham's Hand Cannon deals 5 token damage for 3 moves, worth 7 gold tokens. The Flamethrower that deals 6 token damage for 3 moves, worth 8 gold tokens. Sparkbow does 7 token damage for 2 moves, worth 9 gold tokens. The Laser Cannon deals 7 token damage for 1 move, that's worth 8 gold tokens. And your Explosive Sting that deals 7 token damage for 2 moves, worth 9 gold tokens. Now, the next part, you have your enemy statuses as well. So, your zombie that takes 1 red token off each turn, has 10 green health tokens. Now, the armored zombie knocks player's damage back by 2. So, essentially, what this means is you roll a 6, it will knock it down to 2, so meaning you get 4. If the player rolls a 2 or lower and does not do damage to the enemy, it is lowered by 2. So essentially what that means is, again, what I've just mentioned there, but if you do also roll a 2 or below, it does not do damage. If you do have a weapon by any chance, though, it will still inflict damage just as normal, the weapon, as well as your power-ups. It takes 2 red tokens off the player and has 12 green health tokens, receives 1 gold token out beating it. The Inferno Zombie has 7 green health tokens and takes off 2 red tokens. The Giant Zombie takes 2 red tokens off the player and has 15 green health tokens. The Sentinel, and you receive 2 gold tokens with that. The Sentinel takes off 3 red tokens and has 15 green health tokens, receives 2 gold tokens in that in total. The Psychic Zombie, guns are non-effective, so meaning that any type of gun is immune to it, so you just use your dice roll in this case. It has 12 green health tokens and knocks off 2 red health tokens off the player. The Wolf has 10 green health tokens and knocks off 2 red tokens off the player. It receives 1 gold token in reply. The Werewolf has 15 green health tokens and can take off 2 health tokens off the player. Receives 2 gold tokens. Now, the one on your right here, all the ones that are all in black, whereas the other ones in grey, these are your standard zombies. These are your enemy types, your boss enemy types. So you have your Sentinel Knight that has 30 green health tokens and can take off 4 red tokens. Receives 5 gold tokens in reply for that. The Doctor Zombie has 18 health tokens. If the player doesn't kill it, it will steal the weapons off them. It takes 3 health tokens and receives 2 gold tokens and an evic token, which, as well as both Sentinel Knights, Nightwalkers, and all forms of boss zombies, do grant the player an evic token. So the Reaper has 25 health tokens, the Winchester Repeater and the Abraham Hand Cannon are unaffected to this. Deals 3 token damage to the player and receives 2 gold tokens in reply. The Python has 22 health tokens and deals 3 token damage to the player. It's immune to powerful attacks and a Blunderbuster. If the player does not beat in 3 moves, it will give the player attacks back. Receives 3 gold tokens when they're beaten and receives an evic token. So Nightwalker has 30 green health tokens and takes off 4 red tokens off the player. Silver Bullets and Holy Iron Grenades are non-effective against this enemy. If the player doesn't kill it, it will double the output damage when it finishes their turn. So if you get if it has 15 HP left, instead of doing 15 HP damage, it does 30, and you receive 5 gold tokens from that. The Dragon has 20 L tokens and takes off 2 red tokens from there. Artillery, Abraham Hand Cannon, Winchester Rifle, and Spark Bow are immune to this type of enemy. It receives gold tokens, 3 gold tokens, and the evic token. So your power stats, so you have your standard shield, which apply 5 tokens of extra health to the player for 2 moves. This worth 2 gold tokens. You have the heavy shield, which applies 7 blue tokens to the player for 2 moves, worth 4 gold tokens. The same as well. It applies when it means extra health, it means 4 blue tokens. The Light Shield applies 2 blue tokens to the player for 2 moves, worth 1 gold token. The Silent Killer, meaning that the enemy cannot see you and misses one action on to attack it, worth 3 gold tokens, meaning basically If an enemy goes to attack you after the move or another player, it can't inflict damage onto you. This is your weapon token, which is the icon for that. Your time steal allows the player to have an extra turn when versus the opponent, so you can use this instead of having 3 turns, you have 4 turns instead. This is worth 4 gold tokens. Your healer, which heals the player by 5 red tokens, worth 2 tokens. Artillery, which does 6 token damage at the opponent but can only use in 1 turn, worth 3 gold tokens. The silver bullets does 3 extra token damage on weapon cards for 2 moves, worth 3 credits / gold tokens. Credits and gold tokens, by the way, do mean the same. Holy Grenades does 10 token damage for 1 turn, worth 7 gold tokens. And your downgraded stats. So you have Infected, which poisons the player, takes 2 red tokens per turn until the first opponent is defeated. So this means basically you could be going up against a zombie or you could be going up against a boss. Basically, each time you'll get 2 red tokens taken off plus the enemy's inflicted damage onto you until they're beaten. So Shield Breaker, which destroys any amount of shield the player has. So if you basically have any form of shield, so you have, let's say, a full 10 blue tokens there altogether, it will just get rid of it all altogether. Deadman Rising, so players cannot use their weapons and powers for 1 move. Heartbreaker takes away the player's healer power. The Scrapper discards all powers from the player, so if you have a full deck, it will scrap all them. However, it will not scrap evic tokens. Tax Rat steals 3 gold tokens of the player. Gun Wreckage takes away the player's most recent weapon that they have. So all that means basically they have a Ray Blaster first, it'll get rid of that. But even if they haven't received a weapon for a while, they still have one on there, it will still take off that weapon. The Vermin Fury, so all enemies deals double attack damage onto the player for 2 moves, and the Life Taker automatically takes 4 red tokens off the player. So these are some of the card examples of what they look like. So you have the downgraded card there, the power card there, the mystery card there, the evic token, and the weapon card example. So for your zone 1, the rules are no weapons to have a damage output higher than 3. There should be 4 weapons, 3 power-ups, and 3 downgrades in the mystery pile. There is no star within this part of the zone. However, players can still gain and choose whether they want to collect credits at the start of the game if they are playing through to the next zone. Players that are allowed, power-ups that are allowed in the mystery card pile are Healer, Life Shield, and Standard Shield. Downgraders are allowed in this are Tax Rat, Gun Wreckage, and Shield Breaker. Players are unable to buy each other back in this zone, as well as there is no star in this zone, but players can still gain tokens in this zone, just like it mentioned beforehand. So for your second zone rules, the star is included in this match. Each slot should have 2 cards in it. Players can now buy mystery cards with 2 gold tokens and remove their downgraders in the store for 2 gold tokens. The mystery slot should have a weapon that does not have a weapon damage output higher than 6. This also applies to the store cards too. The power-ups in the stores that are allowed are Silent Killer, Artillery, Healer, Shield, and Heavy Shield. This also applies to the mystery cards too. The mystery slot cards must include 5 weapons, 5 power-ups, and 5 downgraders. The captain will pick out what downgraders, power-ups, and weapons, which then they will shuffle the pack of the cards and place it down into 3 rows containing 5 cards each. Players can now donate weapons and currency at this point of the game. Downgraders that are allowed are Heartbreaker, Tax Rat, and Gun Wreckage, Shield Breaker, and Vermin Fury. Players can also buy their players back in the zone. It costs 2 tokens to mid-game to bring them back with half of their health and no weapons / powers, and it costs 4 tokens to bring them back mid-game with a full health and all their weapons and powers back, and to remove their downgraders too. And so your final zone rules. So in the start, all forms of weapons / powers can be bought. The captain will gather all the cards and shuffle them at random and place down the first weapons / powers they see into the designated slot. So it is still face down, but it's the first one to see face down before flipped over. There must be 2 different types of weapons power-ups in weapon. There must be 2 different types of weapons, power-ups in each slot. Once the cards have been shuffled, the remaining star cards will go at the side of the star deck. If a player wants the star deck to be reshuffled, the captain will gather all the cards and place them face down, and once they are full, the captain will reveal it. For the mystery pile, all forms of weapons, power-ups, and downgrades can be used in the zone. In the mystery pile, there must be 7 weapons, 7 downgrades, 7 power-ups. The captain will pick out the downgraders, power-ups, and weapons, which then they will shuffle the pack of cards and place them down in 3 rows, each containing 7 cards. Players can now choose to revive players throughout the game with the cost of 4 tokens or 6 tokens to keep their weapons slash powers. This will automatically be counted as a turn if the players wish to do so. So if they want to use the power, they can't do that. The 4 tokens also means basically it brings half of the health back as well. The downgraders now cost 4 tokens to get rid of in the star slot, and 7 tokens if they are not in the star slot, so mid game. This will either be counted as a turn, so if the player wishes to use their power, they cannot do that. So power-up rules. So powers can only be used 1 at a time during turns. Powers can be activated from when the player uses them through different zones. Certain powers are restricted. If a player has a field of power deck and they choose to pick up an item of the mystery card that does contain a power-up, they can either put the power-up back under the pile, discard one of their power-ups to use one they picked, or donate to another player. If the player has bought another power-up with a filled-out power deck, they can either donate to another player or discard the item. When the player discards the power-up, they will need to put it under the star card pile unless it comes from the mystery slot, then it will go under that instead. If the player dies with any powers in the deck, they will be removed when they are revived from the star, or the players brought them back with a lower amount in a certain zone. So your weapon rules. So players can use up to 3 weapons in their weapon decks, and in each turn they have against an opponent, they can choose which one they want to use. The weapons will automatically be used from the moment the player picks it up on the slot they moved it after they have bought it from the store or have picked it up from a mystery pile. If the player picks up a mystery slot card and it contains a weapon when their weapon deck is full, they can either put the slot card back under the pile, choose to discard one of their weapons to use it, or donate it to another player. If a player picks up a mystery slot card and it contains a weapon when their weapon deck is full, they can either put the slot back under the card pile, choose to discard one of their weapons to use, or donate it to another player. If the player has bought a weapon from the store, when their weapon slot is full, they can choose to discard it or donate it towards another player. When the player's weapon is discarded or worn off, they can put it back from when they got it from, whether it's from the store, which it would go under the store card pile, or the mystery card slot, where it would go under the mystery card pile. If the weapon reaches its last turn within its moves, it can be used for the remaining move, to which once the enemy is defeated in that slot, the weapon will get discarded. If the player has any weapons in their deck, when they die, they will be removed once the player is revived from the start. On the other hand, they can keep their weapons in certain zone. The player pays a specific balance off to let them keep their weapons. So for your mystery slot, mystery card / star slot rules. When the player lands on a mystery slot, they can choose whether they pick one up out of the various piles of them, or they can pass and not pick one up at all. The players cannot pick up more than one or pass it to another player, unless it is a weapon or a power up, then they can donate to another player, as mentioned previously. When setting up the star, the captain must have a weapon pile and a power up pile next to the star deck. They need to shuffle both weapon cards or power cards separately and face them down in the designated slots. Once that's done, they need to flip them back over to reveal it to the players. If there's more than 2 of the same item in the weapon / star segment, the captain needs to reshuffle the slot that they found the extra card in until it is a different one. When the players land on the star slot, they can buy anything out of the decks as long as they have the credits to matches of the items. The players can choose to reshuffle, but only once. It does not cost anything to reshuffle, and if they do, then the captain collects the deck of cards from the start, shuffles them, and places 2 on each slot until the deck is full. The reshuffle deck carries over to the other player's turn to choose what they want to buy. Each time the player lands on a star slot, the captain needs to reshuffle the deck every time. Players can also choose to buy a mystery slot card from the start for 2 gold tokens / credits. However, the captain picks out the card for you. They are not allowed to look at the card. They picked at random. They just have to give it to you, and then you see what it is. And this is just an example in terms of setting up in the visual representation. So your first step is basically the players must gather their weapon cards and power-up cards together. The second step is place them next to the star deck, flip them both open and shuffle them together separately. Third step, once the cards have been shuffled, place 2 in each slot and face down. The fourth step, once all the cards are face down, flipping them over. If the player knows that there's two or more in the same card, well, more than 2 in the same card, reshuffle the slot with the extra card was noticed until they're all even. All evenly matched, either 2 or below. So your downgrader rules. So when the player acquires the downgrader, it will automatically be activated when the stated duration that it lasts for. If it does not have one on it, it will only be used the moment the player picks up the card before they need to place it back under the mystery card pile. If the player acquires another downgraded card when they already have one, they need to place it on top of the current downgrader. Then once it has reached its duration, the picked up downgrader will then take effect. If the card does not have a duration on it, then the one that's picked up will still automatically be used one time without getting rid of their current downgrader. If the player dies with a downgrader within their deck, it will automatically be removed when they come back. When the player's downgrader is reached the end of the duration, they will need to put it back under the mystery card pile. If the player's downgrade doesn't match with the player at the moment, e.g. power up, weapons, etc., and it doesn't have a duration on it, the player needs to keep that until the card gets used. If the player has acquired a duration downgrade on top of a downgrade that doesn't have one, it doesn't have a duration on it, the duration downgrader will still take effect just as normal, and then when the non-duration card will take effect if something matches it, so for example if it knocks a weapon off, that will take an effect, and then the duration one will still carry on. Then it will be used whilst the duration one will still be active. So your currency rules. So there is no limit how much the player has in their currency. However, they can only have a maximum of 3 EVIC tokens. The players can choose to donate each other how much they want when they're in the star slot. Players cannot donate EVIC tokens to each other during the game. When the player spells back into the game, if they die, they will lose 3 gold tokens. Gold tokens and EVIC tokens are the forms of the currency in this game. When the player acquires the EVIC token, they can place it on top of any weapon and they keep it permanently. If the player uses the EVIC token, the slot will permanently be taken up and no other weapon can be used in that slot. Once the player has reached the maximum EVIC token capacity, they cannot claim any more of them, even if they beat the boss enemy and gets an EVIC token, they cannot collect it or donate it. If the player does not want to use the EVIC token straight away, it must be stored in one of the star slots until the player wants to use it. So the final part of the rules of this game is the end game rules. So when the player reaches the end of the zone, they can either choose whether they want to verse each other or avoid fire and tally up their credits that they've got. If the player chooses just to tally up the credits, each weapon / power item is worth 2 gold tokens each. The red token is equivalent to 1 gold token. Downgraders take off 2 credits and shield tokens themselves, so the actual blue parts, the blue shield tokens, they don't count as any extra credits. However, if you do have it, it's a power up and it's not being used, that does count. Whereas the highest currency of the game wins the game. If the currency is the same, then it's a tie. The players choose to fight each other, they will verse each other. They will verse one another with the powers / weapons that they have, and until the opponent is defeated. If the players have any downgraders on them, then they will still be active whilst they verse each other. If the game has more than 2 players, They could choose who they want to attack on each turn. Whoever survives wins the game. If the players reach the end of all zones, they will automatically have to fight each other. When the players choose to fight each other, they will automatically be taken to the store to buy any power-ups, weapons before the fight. All health is restored before the fight. If the players all die before reaching the end of the zone, they will tally up their credits, but their health will not be included as they were killed. If the player carries over to the next zone, all health is restored. Once the player chooses to fight each other, they cannot change their mind and just tally up their currency. This also goes the same for tallying up the currency. They cannot change how to go to fight each other. I hope this has been really informative and really straightforward. Now we are going to go through to the playthrough of the game Raktototen.
My name is Joseph Marr, and this is a visual representation of my board game and the rules for Raktototen. And I will be going over basically the rules of the game, so how it works, each sort of fundamental sort of aspect of it, some design background as well, so how I developed the game and what inspired me to make this sort of board style game, and as well as how the game plays and also the rules and what you can and can't do as well. This basically works is the players are versing each other essentially, but they're also working together, and the game is about sort of, because they'll always be sort of fighting each other. They always will. That is how this will work. But essentially, they can choose whether they really do want to go up against each other, like really try the best to disadvantage one another by collecting more currency, collecting more currency, or having more shields, gaining the upper advantage, having the better weapons, or actually aiding each other, which I'll go through later on in the game, basically the aspects of what the players can do sort of to appeal more to that side rather than be sort of really going up against each other. So it turns the setting up. Now what I'm going to do here is basically we've got two dices here. So essentially what this is now is we've got to choose who's going to be the captain. Now the captain's sort of role within the board game is basically essentially setting up. So whoever rolls the dice and whoever gets the highest amount is basically who's going to set up the game. But they also do have some other specific rules that will basically show their role much more throughout the level. So in terms of the blue one is going to be for the black character there, and the red dice is going to be for the red character here. Now it doesn't really matter what color or what color the dice needs to really be, or pretty much really the characters. As long as they're odd colors, it's pretty much fine. So as long as it's a 6-sided dice, it's not really an issue. You can play this game as long as you do have this. So essentially for this one, I'm going to roll that. So we've only got a 2 for that one, and roll for the next one, which is a 6. So basically the red one is now the captain. So in terms of setting it up, so basically in this case what I've mentioned here as well, that obviously both players do have to roll, and whoever gets a higher gets to be the captain basically. If they do roll the same amount, they basically just keep going until one gets higher than the other essentially. So essentially the captain has to hand out the play deck. So in this case what I'm just going to do here is move around all of the boards essentially. So you do also have what we call player decks. Now this is what your player deck will look like. So you do have your weapon 1, your weapon 2, weapon 3. So you have 3 slots for your weapons. You do also have a downgrader and your 3 power slots, as well as where your tokens need to go within your segments here. So basically I'll just explain briefly what these do. So this is your weapon card here. Your weapons essentially add additional damage towards your output of the dice. So when you roll this, so for example, if I roll a 4, it's going to do 4 damage to the enemy. This card, for example, your Blunderbuster, deals 4 token damage for 3 moves. And so basically it adds an additional 4 damage to this. So it does 8 damage rather than 4. And that's only to a certain amount of moves. Now you do also have what they call your power-ups as well, which also aid you in a variety of ways. So for example, this one here we've got the Holy Grenade. Essentially is the one that it outputs damage. So it can only be used once, but it essentially does 10 additional damage on top your rolled move. So if I roll a 3, I can use this card in that same turn as well, and it would apply 10 plus damage. So if I rolled, like say, a 3, it does 13 damage. Your other ones as well, for example, your healer. So you have your, basically it will heal the player by up to 5 red tokens, which on here, basically if I just get out the player deck again, essentially you do have your red tokens as well. So as I get it out, that there is your red token. So that is where your health will go, and you do have 5. Now essentially the rules for that is basically if the maximum health is 10. If they have 10, they can't use any more. It won't go above 10. 10's the maximum essentially. And other ones, for example, are your shield. So this goes into the blue segment, the blue shield token part. Essentially this one adds 2 blue tokens to the player for 2 moves. So essentially what that means is it will add 2 more additional health above as well as your health token. So enemy, if an enemy attacks you, it'll go towards the shield rather than the health. And then you do also have your gold tokens, which essentially I will come to that very soon, but I will explain that in a bit more in depth of what you get from that as well. So that is essentially your currency. So once I've given out the decks, now essentially we do also apply as well as the health and the other option as well. So I do it here. So essentially now we do have those options from here. So we've got to apply 10 red tokens to each player. So they will go in here. So 5 in each one essentially. So we do have 5 there. So we have 10 health there, and we're about to apply 10 health to the other player as well. So that's like that. So basically once the decks have been set out like that, and the players do have their health, essentially what they will have as well is the option whether to have the shield or the extra credit. So they essentially have 2 choices. They can either go for the shield or the gold tokens, and they get 2 of each, but they can only pick one. They can only pick one. So in this case, for the so I'm going to name this player 1 and player 2. Even though player 2 is the captain, so they have more of a central role. That's how I'm just going to name it for name's sake for now, basically, just to make it a bit easier. So for player 1, they're going to go for the 2 shield tokens. Now with these, because usually you do, like, there's only a temporary amount of time you can use your shield basically before it just gets discarded. When you start with 2 shield, this will be kept. This will be kept throughout until it runs out basically. So this will be kept as long as the player needs it for basically, until it gets used up by enemy damage. And so for player 2, they're going to go for the 2 credits. So basically once that's set up, essentially the last thing that they really just need to do is to lay out the zones, and then once the zones have been laid out in a horizontal fashion or in a vertical fashion, it's preferably better to use it in a horizontal fashion. However, it does also work in a vertical fashion. It's just whatever the player really prefers. Basically, when that's been set out, and then the last thing the players just need to do with each other is roll again, and whoever gets the highest this time goes first. So just going to set that out now. So essentially these player decks are just going to go out of the way for now then, whilst I set up the player decks. Now just for the sake basically of the video, essentially so I can just preview of what I'm going to do. Essentially I'm just going to set it out with the first zone for now and swap the zones in between. So for example in this one, this is zone 1. And this is sort of a really entry level zone. It's really basic. Essentially it is there just for the players to get familiarized with the mechanics and also with what their, well, like I said, the main mechanics and what their sort of goal is. So like I said, they're supposed to get to the end of the board. There are your other zones as well. So there's your second zone here, so this is zone 2, and then the last zone, which will be zone 3, or is known as the final zone. And these will be carried on later on as the player progresses through the game. So the one last thing I did also forget to mention is also that the player, or say the captain in this, will also need to start out with the mystery cards. Now in this case, there are 10 mystery cards that all together within this zone. So essentially the damage output can't be higher than 3. The reason why for this is basically so that it isn't too easy for the player. When playtesting this before, I realised that adding really powerful weapons in the first zone especially can cause a problem, especially with balancing issues. So essentially what I managed to do is just add a cap, so that way it's a lot more balanced. So essentially the captain's role in this is basically they have to pick out what cards they are. As long as it abides by the rules in the zone, it's fine. So essentially what I am just doing now as the captain, essentially I am just switching through what cards will be used for the zone, and then the last part is once the cards have been picked out, they shuffle them. They shuffle them so they don't really know where they know what the cards are in there, but they don't know which one's first. It's not there, and as well as they are not allowed to tell the other player what are in those cards. So basically within the rules there are only certain restrictions, so the player will know pretty much like what guns would be allowed and what sort of power-ups and downgraders that would be allowed as well. So in this case, so as I'm just setting this up, so basically now I've picked out the cards, I essentially now just need to shuffle them in between. Now basically again, this will be in a case of, so that way it's fairly regulated to a point where the captain does know what the cards are inside the mystery cards. However, they're shuffled about so that way they don't know which one's going to come first at least. So essentially, because now there's 10 cards, we have to split them into 5 to put them in 2 segments essentially. Now the benefit of this essentially is so that really enough the player will be able to know what cards are about to come. The benefit of this is essentially so that the player will be able to get something good, whether it's like a power up or a weapon, but they can also get something what they call a downgradер. Now a downgradер is essentially something that will affect the player's performance in a bad way. So what that means is basically that it could affect them. So for example, there are some that will take away the player's recent gun. So they've just picked up, let's say they have 2 guns and they have a MP40 and something like a ray blaster or a ray gun. It will take away that ray gun because that was the most recent gun. Or if the player's picked up if they've only got 1 weapon, it will just take away that weapon. It doesn't matter. Or there's some, for example, that will just completely scrap players' entire deck of power-ups as well. So there are some that are harsher than others. So within this zone, they're not too harsh. Essentially, what we have 3 different types of potential downgraders in this, which are your gun wreckage, your shield breaker, and tax rat. Tax rat essentially takes away 3 credits of the player. So if you start off with 2 and you go to a mystery slot and you literally just pick up that and you get a downgrade, it takes away your credits automatically. Your shield breaker takes away any other shield that they've got. So if you've got shield on, if you've got 10 shield, 5 shield, 2 shield, doesn't matter how much shield you got, it will take away that shield. And the other one as well is gun wreckage. So your power-ups as well, so within your power-ups in the first zone, what they call the healer, which will apply 5 red tokens to the player, so it heals them by 5 red tokens. Now that doesn't apply to shields. If they do have shields, it doesn't apply to that, it only applies to the health. There is also the light shield, which adds 2 shield tokens for 2 moves, and basically the standard shields, which will apply 5 blue tokens over 2 moves as well. So all the shields are practically over 2 moves. It's just you get more of them as basically wherever you go on. So the shield cap on this is 10. You can't use more than 10 basically within this. Now we can start with the game. So just quickly before we start, like I said before, we do have to roll the dices. So the captain in this case can roll first, essentially because of the captain. They get to roll first essentially. So they've only got one. So 5. So it turns. Black goes first, red goes second, so the captain goes last, and the other player goes first. Now, essentially with this, if they do, again with the captain one, if they do get the same round numbers, again it's just a case of rolling again, that's all. So in this case we have a zombie. Now, your zombie within this essentially it takes 1 red token off the player, and has 10 green health tokens. Now with the combat system within this, so in this case they roll the dice. So what I'm going to do is just before I roll the dice actually, I need to set up your green tokens. Now your green tokens are the enemy's health, so this will be essentially what the player knocks off. Whatever is really best for the player, and however they just prefer to set that part up. But yeah, as long as it's within a visible view near to the board, that's okay. You can even move one night source separately and bring some back, if you know what I mean. Basically, just to make it a bit more practical for the player, really. Once that's done, essentially we just roll the dice. So because player 1 got the highest amount, they go first. Now when they do this, so essentially I'm just going to roll the dice, which get 4. So now this takes 4 tokens off the player. So that's 4 off there. And we'll put into a segment a separate part of the play area basically. And so player 2 in this case also gets 4, so knocks 4 off. Now how this works as well is, now because we've already gone through his turn, the enemy takes a health off, so it takes 1 off for the zombie. So for the actually for player 1, it only takes a shield token off, which basically just goes back into the slot there. And for player 2, it takes off a red token, which will also go back into the slot. Now, how it works is with this, with sort of the combat system within this. The player has 3 turns. They have up to 3 different turns. So 3 different turns to attack the enemy. If they don't beat the enemy within 3 turns, essentially what happens is, whatever remaining health the enemy does have will inflict that automatically. For example, of this zombie, if we didn't kill this zombie, and it had 5 green tokens, those 5 green tokens apply to the player if they don't finish it off. So that's essentially either 5 shield tokens off or 5 red tokens off, for example. Kind of like that, that's how it would work. So, and that's really about that really for now. So in this case, we roll again. So player 1 ends up going first, which also knocks off 5. So in this case, it finishes the zombie off. Now we're also on a mystery card slot as well, meaning that the player does have the choice whether they want to pick up a card or not. So it's not mandatory. The players can choose whether they want to or not. Bear in mind as well, you can also get things that will improve the player's gameplay, or it can also affect them by, like I said, picking up a downgrader. One thing to notice, if they, for example, if a player does have like a gun wreckage, so it takes them to use some weapon, but they don't actually have a weapon, so they actually keep that there. They keep it there, and when they pick up a weapon, it automatically just gets used, so it just knocks that weapon off automatically. It does not matter. And so player 1 is going to go for a card. So player 1 has got an MP40. Now, an MP40 deals 2 token damage for 2 moves. So this activates automatically the moment that you pick it up. Or for example, if you bought it from a store, which I will move on to later on, it will be activated upon the move after the store. So it also is worth 2 gold credits. I'm now into my weapon slot. And player 2 is also going to pick one up. So we're going to pick one up from this side. So the player 2 also has a shield. Now, the shield applies, again, 5 blue tokens to the player for 2 moves, also worth 2 gold tokens. And essentially how this will work, it will just go in here. Now, how your power-ups work, when you've also had your move or turn, essentially the power-up can be used after that turn's happened. they can only use one. They can't use all three at once. They can only be used once, essentially because, again, purely for balance sake, really, if they use all three power-ups, it would be immensely easy, essentially. So, we move on to the next one. So, player 1 goes first this time. So, because it also does an attack damage at 2 as well, so it gets 1, so it does 3 token damage. So, as I set these back up again, because we are versing another zombie, 3 health tokens taken off. And then for the player 2, takes 4 off. So that's 4 off there. And now the zombie has 3 remaining health. So essentially now it takes 1 health off each of us. So because now the shield tokens for player 1 has been depleted now, it's completely gone. And this is now also another one taken off of player 2. Now essentially when they move over into the next zone as well, which is, I'm just going to mention it very early, they do also replenish the health. The health does get replenished if they do want to carry over to the next zone, so it does really carry over. So essentially if they don't have any health, instead of carrying over, they do automatically get the health replenished. So because they're moving into different zones, it's a complete new, I wouldn't say new fresh start, they do keep the weapons, essentially they just get healed over, moved to the different zones. So in this case as well, so now that's been done, roll another dice. We've got 4 in this case, obviously as well, we do 6 damage, so it takes the enemy out. So we move forward for both of the players. Now, this is sort of the last zone, sort of the player can use their MP40. Now how this works essentially, we are now onto the second zone. Now in this case, through this video I'm going to be playing out the full playthrough from zone 1, zone 2 and zone 3. Now in this case, essentially what happens is when you move into another zone, any downgraders get depleted, so it completely gets wiped. You replenish your health, so you can get your health back. You don't get any shields or anything like that. If you do have any power-ups or any weapons, you do carry them over as well. And that's really about that. In this case, essentially now this is included with the store deck as well, which basically I will, once we reach that point, I will also show an introduction how you set that up. So in this case now, the rules have changed for also the mystery cards. So now there's 5 of each. So there's 3, as you can see from here now, there's 3 different parts there. And essentially in this case, you have now quite a balanced variety. So you have 5 power-ups, 5 weapons, and 5 downgraders. So, and there's some of them are slightly more severe. So some of your downgraders include, for example, Heartbreaker, which will completely deplete any sort of extra health. So you do have a healer card, it'll just get rid of that basically, that's all it means. And a Zomsnack, which is Zomsnack essentially will increase damage, so it will double the output damage from any other enemy for a certain amount of moves essentially. And basically they're the same as before. Now in terms of your power-ups, you are allowed basically your heavy shield. So your heavy shield essentially is just the most amount of shield you can get. So like say you can get 7, but like say you can have no more than 10. Silent Killer, which essentially what that means is you miss a turn. So essentially when you use that power up, when an enemy goes to attack you, it doesn't attack you, it only attacks the other player. Unless both players have one, then they completely doesn't even attack them at all. It can't be used on the last move though. The only reason because again when they die, it then completely then make that entire power up basically really powerful, because then the output of damage. So for example, you're versing a boss and you can use that on a boss on the last bit, and they have like, I don't know, like 15 tokens left for example, they could inflict all that damage on you, but instead you just miss that turn, so you can't use it on the last zone. That's the only one you can't use it on. You do also get your artillery, which applies a lot amount of damage, so it does apply a lot more. We do have his artillery card here now, so essentially it does 6 token damage to off the opponent, but it can only use once. So again, similar to the Holy Grain that I mentioned earlier, this can only be used once. So that's also a separate pile into basically your store cards altogether. So now then, in this case we will start off. So again, because we rolled before on the first zone, this carries over to this. So essentially the first player, player 1 basically gets it, player 2 is also the captain. So, roll this, because we're versing a zombie. In fact, we do also need to set this out. There we go. Let's get started with this then. So, there's one zombie, so we're going to take 1 health off in this case. And the other player, player 2, takes 5 off. So in this case, it takes the remaining health off that. And also has 5 remaining health, so that's 1 health token, taken off both. Case, we need to roll now, enjoy this, a 3. So we need to get a 3 on this. It gets a 6, so basically that is now sorted. And now we have 5, all in all. So now because that is sorted, we are now on to the next enemy. Which also takes off 5. So player 1 takes off 5 health. Player 2 takes off 2 health. So 1 is taken off each there altogether. Player 1 takes off 1 health. 2 takes off 5. And that is that, more or less. So that one's that zone basically sorted. So we do also have a mystery card slot in this case. So again, it's up to us which one we kind of really want to use in this case. So player 1's also going to pick one up. So this now, player 1 has a heavy shield. So that means they can use 7 blue tokens for 2 moves instead. And player 2 also get 1. So now they have Heartbreaker. So essentially what this means is they get a healer power up, it automatically gets scrapped if they do pick one up. So we move over to the next part. So essentially, because in this case we're in a massive zone, I'm actually going to use this pretty much straight away for the player 1. So that's pretty much sorted. So like I say again, if you do pick one up out of the zone, it goes back into the bottom of the pile. Goes down into there. And then after that, 7 shield tokens will also be applied onto the enemy. Onto us, sorry. And that is that. So in this case, we do also have a vast majority of enemies that we are versing here. So essentially, we've got a Inferno zombie, a normal zombie, and 2 wolves. So in this case, we verse an Inferno zombie first, since it has the lowest amount of health. So it has 7 in this case. 1, so it just takes 1 off in this case. So player 2 really needs to get a 6 to instantly kill it. That takes 1 off in this case. It takes 2 off us. Now because it only takes 2 off the shield, it will only apply to that, and it takes 2 health off the normal play as well. Now one thing I do need to mention as well really quickly, because we're on the star part as well, so let's say for example one of the players end up dying, so player 1 or player 2, essentially how it'll work is they automatically do get revived, but they will lose most of their stuff. So essentially all the health and everything gets replenished, but they will lose 3 credits. They'll lose 3 of the credits, and any weapons or anything that they have is automatically gone, so it will be disappeared from there. Any weapons, but that also includes downgraders as well. So now we're on to the next part here, so we just carry on. So take 3 off the Inferno zombie, and now we just need to get 2 up above, which we do get that, that's fine. And so that has now been defeated. So now we are on to the zombie, which is the next part basically. Set this up correctly, yeah. So Let's take 5 off that. Takes this off that. So now, that's that enemy also defeated. So now we're onto the wolves. Now, again, same health, but this time they do 2 output damages. So, in this case, roll there, only takes 1 off there. Roll here, and we get to 6. So, essentially, that has now taken off pretty much the majority of its health. So, that is that done. That's 2 off that. And now, that's taken 2 off us. So, essentially, that's a shield token taken off from there. And that's 2 of his health tokens taken off from here as well. For player 2. So now we need 3 or both to kill this wolf. Which will get 5 in this case. So now, that is that sorted. So that's 1 down, and we both get a credit token. We start again from here. So let's take 5 off 1. Take 1 off that. That shield is completely gone. Near enough. And that is 2 taken off for the enemy as well. Now we need 4 or above in between both. So we've got 2 on 1. So we just need a 2 or higher for player 2, which now is fine. We both get a token. So now this is the next part I'm also going to introduce. Now in this case we are on a store slot. So what this basically means is the player is allowed to buy anything from these slots. Now essentially we do also have our 2 cards from here for as weapons and as well as our power-ups. Now in this case there are, like I said, some within the zone that can only be up to anything up to 6 damage or below. And that is that can't be no less. So essentially in this case, since the captain sorts this out, essentially what they do in this one, they have 2 of each slot in every single one. So they can basically flip the cards underneath and under out basically in each one. If they're not bothered about that, so if the player thinks actually no, I don't really like this, they can pick up the cards and reshuffle them again, but they only have 1 reshuffle, and that is that. And it does carry over for the other player. So in this case, I'm just going to actually shuffle what's actually within the cards. So I flipped them down onto the bottom, just like this. So, like that. So essentially, reshuffle these again. And place them down flat on each surface. And this also applies for the power cards as well. So, I'm going to shuffle these about as well, so there's quite a lot here actually. So again, same applies, it does go into sort of the same sort of slot as well. So that's been shuffled about. Oh, stuck together. And that is that sorted. So now because that's been sorted out, now we can flip over which ones they are in this altogether. So we've got 2 blunderbusters underneath there, which basically do 4 damage in terms of having 6 tokens altogether. So now we also have 2 AK-47s, which also are worth 5 gold tokens and do 3 token damage within 3 turns. And essentially now we also have either Tommy gun or a MP40. The MP40 is worth 2 gold credits and the Tommy gun's worth 3 gold credits. And for the that's basically what we've got from there. Now essentially as well, if you do have, let's say for example you have 2 time steals from there and you have another 2 time steals, you can swap it about from there. So essentially you can swap some of the stuff out if you don't. If, for example, they are the same, basically. So once that's done, essentially that's what it is now when it's laid out. So we have basically, for example, if they want to look underneath this, they can either get a Tommy gun or an MP5, 2 AK-47s, or 2 blunderbusters. Now essentially, so player 1 has in this case 5 tokens. So essentially what's player 1 going to do? I'm going to buy, it's going to buy a healer. So I'm going to buy a healer from that one, so that's going to go in there. And also, in this case, I'm also going to buy a Tommy gun that's worth 3. So that's all my tokens basically gone from that point. Which, in that case, once all the tokens are gone, they go back into here, back into the slot. Now, player 2 in this instance has 7 gold tokens. So really, they could go for practically anything they want in this case. So they could really go for the blunderbuster, which is what they're going to go for. They're going to go for the blunderbuster. So that's all the tokens practically gone in this case for now. So the blunderbuster is worth 6 tokens. However, it does 4 token damage on top of the normal roll for 3 moves, which is pretty good actually. So we'll move over to the next zone. So we're now versing 2 wolves. So player 1 goes first. So they do have a Tommy gun. So because they bought it, it's sets active from this point. So it's from here down to the bottom on this one here. It doesn't actually activate on the start. It activates on the move afterwards. So we activate this. So we've got 2. So in this case, once we set these up, put these here. We also want to miss the slot as well. So we've got these here. And obviously we've done 2 on top of damage, so we've done 4 damage from there. Take that off. Now, this is where player 2 goes into roll. So 6, so they do 10 damage altogether. So again, it's a significant amount of damage now, which in this zone especially helps because, as you can see from here, the enemies do become extremely more powerful and they do become a lot harder. So in this case, it is really enough better, in this case, for it to have extra sort of weapon variety. It honestly makes it such, well, easier as well as not being too easy, because again, you're versing very hard enemies in this as well. So with that being beaten, you do also get each 1 token. So go back again with the other wolf. So fight it again. Start off with, that's 8 token damage taken off altogether, as they take 2 off from there, so that's 8. Also in this case, it's pretty much what, obviously you still have to roll from here, but in this case they would have done 10 damage altogether, so that is them defeated. So in that case, altogether, that's another token each on that point. There we go. So we're on to the next zone. Now in this case, you have actually 2 new variants of enemies in this case. So you do also have your giant zombie, which in fact takes 2 off the enemy. And basically it's similar to the werewolf that we versed in the first zone, the last one. It does take off 2 health and also has 15 health as well. And also as well, you have the cycling zombie. Now this has 12 green health tokens and knocks 2 red tokens out, but there's a catch to this zombie specifically. Now, with these weapons that we've got, they are actually ineffective. So what that means is, you cannot use these. These will not do any extra damage in this case. So it'll do extra damage for the other enemies, but it won't do for the psychic zombie. Essentially why is because it uses its psychic powers to knock off any form of bullets that goes up against them. So with them having a low health, they have 12 green health tokens as well. So they do have quite a lot. So this is actually quite a hard enemy to come across in this case. So in this scenario, essentially we do, like I say, have an Inferno zombie. So we reverse that one first, and then we go to the wolf, the psychic zombie, and then the giant zombie. So let's get this started then. So we start from there. we'll go from here. So we start with the first player, and we also want another star slot as well. So we've got 2, so that takes off 4. And then for the other player, in this case is automatically pretty much beating it, but for example, there you go, takes the rest of the health off the Inferno Zombie. There is no credits for that one since it is an Inferno Zombie and it does not give out credits. So we're on to the next one. So we're on to the Wolf in this case. So this one does have just the normal health that they have now. So we also have 6, do 2 damage, that's 8. And now in this case, well, like I said, it's basically enemy's been defeated, both players get a token. Now this one's going to be the harder one. So again, with your Psychic Zombie, it does not have no normal weapons, so no type of weapons can actually do effective damage to it. So it can only be just your normal dice roll in this case. So essentially, you do 2 6s to defeat it in a one go from both players. So we only have 1 taken off from there. And 4 taken off from there. So that's 2 health taken off from there. Yep, so basically, takes the shield token, the final shield token off the player, and a health. And for the other player, it takes off 2 from there. Now in this case, player 2 is out, so they are dead. So essentially, that means any weapons that they've bought, so Blunderbuster or Heartbreaker, has been depleted. It's gone from there. So basically in this case, because they are dead, they have lost them. So these do actually go back under where they came from originally. So in this case, this will go back under here. And then the Blunderbuster will just go back under the stock cards from there. Now, the player does also have an option from here if they want it. Now, yes, we're on the star zone from here, but within some of your zones, so for example, specifically zone 2, you can have the option to actually buy your players back. So what basically happens is now, is basically the player will not be able to come back in until the zone's out. So essentially they'll lose 3 of the tokens. Lose 3 then there. It goes back into there. Essentially the player 1 is by themselves at this point, so they are only be able to fight it by themselves. So because that's already 1 turn taken off, and then it still has, in this case, 7 health. So essentially, when they roll, one does 2 damage. So that's a health token taken. That's 2 health tokens taken off. That's 2 health tokens taken off from there from the main player. Player 1. Essentially, in this case, we need to roll a 5 or above to kill it off. Which we only get a 1. Which in this case now, because this is the final turn, it now inflicts 4 damage onto us in this case because of its final turn. So in this case, it does inflict 4 damage. So the rest of this is off. So the enemy, yes, defeated, does also take off 4 damage. So it does take off a lot of health in that case. So really enough now, it is really down to the player. So in this case, we're going to also use the healer card. Because it is already beaten, you actually still get your credits from this. So you still get your credits from the enemy, even though despite the fact they are, because regardless are defeated. So we will use this now. So now you get 5 health tokens from there. 5 from there, so add that down onto here. And now the damage from this does also take into place. So what that means is basically that you can use the Tommy gun now onto the giant zombie. So that's the final zombie that we verse in this case. And does have 15 health though, so it's going to be incredibly hard for the player now, since now they are only by themselves. So in this case, they will need to basically, if they want to beat it, really, hopefully land 3 goes on this altogether. So go 2, so that's 4 damage eventually taken off. That's 2 health taken off from there. That's 3, so that's 5. That's 5 health taken off from there. That's 2 health taken off. Essentially, we need to roll a 4 or above in this case to actually beat the enemy. So we've now beaten it. So, and that is that from there. So in this case, with the giant zombie being beaten, the player does also receive 1 gold token from that. Essentially from there, and that is that beaten. Actually gets 2 tokens from there. So that's 2 tokens. So once that's been done, they are now onto the start card. So now the player 1 is now, player 2, sorry, is now back into the game. So they are automatically revived, they are back into the start. Now in this case as well, we do also pick up the cards again from here. Now, if for example the captain dies and also has to reshuffle, essentially, well, they do end up coming back anyway, so he will reshuffle regardless. So it doesn't really matter about that case. So the cards from here. This one here basically just being reshuffled. 2 in each slot. And they do also come back with all their health as well. And then we do the same again for the power-ups as well. So there's 2 MP40s in this case, that's in your weapon slot. 2 blunderbusters. In this case, because we do also have 2 blunderbusters in the same slot as well, so to show you for this, for example, we do also reshuffle the last part for this one as well. So because the other one's already fine, we just in case just need to reshuffle for this one slot. That's all you need to do. Once that's been reshuffled, you just have to basically, it will have to reshuffle again for the weapon slot in this case, and then once that's done, and then you just place the cards down. And then if it does come up again with 2 same weapons of similar ones we had before, then you just reshuffle. So we got 2 Abraham cannons on here as well. So that one's done, and then we move over to the power-up segment as well. I will quickly just shuffle these about. That's all them sorted. So now, place them down, face down. And then we face them up all together, seeing what we get. In this case, we also have a healer and a silent killer for this one. For this one, we do also have 2 artilleries in this one. For the last one as well, we do also have a silent killer and another healer from there as well. Now in this case, because we've only just come back, when you die, in terms of this, the captain only has 1 gold token, so really they can't really buy anything from this moment. However, player 1 on the other hand does have 5 tokens, so essentially it's going to use 2 of these tokens to buy himself another healer to just basically last him on for now. So I'll take that. So now he also has 3 other weapons left, 3 other tokens left. So in this case, it's going to also buy an MP40. So basically, yep. So he's bought that and a healer. And for player 2. Just going to leave it for now. So there's actually nothing else can be bought from here. So we just carry on from there. Now in this case, even though yes, I have already got myself a weapon from here and it's already activated, what I'm going to do is from here in the zone, in the second zone, you can donate your weapons over to other players. So this only has one more turn left, and that turn also carries over. So in this case, I'm also going to carry that over towards player 2. So player 2 now has a Tommy gun for this last move, essentially, because we did pick this up. This did get bought from this end from here, and then it's been carried over to this, which is the last zone. So in this case, we're versing a psychic zombie and a giant zombie in this case as well. So just before we start this, before you start your move, essentially I'm just going to use my healer in this case now. So that's 5 tokens added on from there, which will help out massively. And then now we also are versing the psychic zombie from here. There we go. So then basically player 1 does also start this as well. From there. That's 2 damage taken off from the psychic zombie, because again, weapons do not count in this case. Three damage. So in this case, it does take 2 off from each. And that all together goes back into there. So it takes 2 off that. So essentially we need a 5 or above really to defeat this opponent. So we get 2 from there. So that's another 2 taken off. Now we need to get a 3 or above between us both, which will get a 4 from there, which the enemy is now defeated. So in this case, now we move over to the giant. So in this case, this one does have 15 health and delivers 2 tokens if we do defeat it as well. And we do also have a mystery slot on here that we can also pick up. So let's begin. So 5 plus 2 damage as well, so this takes off 7 damage. And then for the last one, so it takes off 6 damage. This case takes 2 off from us from here. So it takes 1. Because it takes 2, it does 3. So there we go. So the giant zombie has now been defeated, and we get 2 tokens each for that one as well. So we go from there. So that's that. And then we also have a mystery card item. So in this case, for player 1, we do have a heavy shield that we've just picked up. So again, so that goes there, which that will be used pretty much from now. So if we just add that. So that'll get used as soon as we get into the next zone, more or less. So we're going to use that. And for the player 2, we also have a blunderbuster, so that means they have 4 damage. Now in this case, because the weapon's already been discarded, so this one here, this also gets put back into the stockpile as well, and now this gets moved into the weapon 1 slot, and the player 1 does still also have their MP40 up till they get to the reach to the next store zone from there. So now we move it over, well that's from there. We can get started out for this then. So now we're on to a new variant of zombie as well now. So now we are on a armored zombie. So essentially what this means is, so any core roll dice, so meaning your normal roll dice, if you do it basically knocks 2 off automatically. So if I roll 6, it only gets a 4. That's how it works from there, essentially. Or if you get told, it does do no minute. However, if you do have weapons, your weapon damage still gets applied. So it still gets applied. So in this case, we've got an MP40. So if I only did 1 damage, it wouldn't count. But the 2 affected damage that I get from the MP40 would still count. So that's fine from there then. So in this case, we're just going to carry on from there. So let's begin this then. So essentially the first zombie that we do come across again is the weakest link out of all these 3. So essentially the armored zombie does only have 12 health tokens in this case. So that will be the first zombie that we do come up against. So start from there. So player 1 does start, which has 5, so it does 7, well, essentially does 3, so it only does 5 damage actually, realistically, because usually we're going to actually say 7 there, but actually 2 it gets knocked off, so it goes 3, but because 2 is added on, it does 5, so really it's just the core damage of what you get from here then. So that's 5 damage from there. And also I'm going to use the shield token for that as well. So that will also go back under the mystery slot where I originally got this from. So we'll go back under there. And that is 7 shield token applied onto my character. And now it is player 2's turn. 4, so it also takes off 2, so it's 2, but because it's plus 4 as well, that does 6 damage in total. So altogether, that is that taken off for this as well. Now in this case, your armored zombie does take off 2 red tokens in this case, basically. So it does take off 2 it does take off 2. So from that, that's 2 shield tokens, and that's 2 red tokens. Yeah, so basically the armored zombie takes off 2, so we're just taking off 2 from there and 2 from here as well. So in this case, we carry on from there. So we roll over from there. So in this case, we do still have 4 health to pretty much take off from there. There's 2 knocked off, and then 2, so that's 3 taken off from there. So from that roll there, what we just did, that is actually the enemy has been defeated from there. So we can now move on to the, well, since the giant zombie and the werewolf have the same output damage, we'll roll for the giant first from there. So the giant is the first enemy that we do come across in verse. So let's begin with this then. So 4, 6 damage altogether. And now 8 damage in total. So that's 5 off there. And 3 off there. So that is 8 in total. So that's the giant actually defeated from there. So now that is a token for both players. And now we are on to the werewolf. So in this case, same again. 5, so this one does 7 damage this time. So now we've done inflicted 7 damage onto the player, to the enemy. That's 6. That's 10 damage in total from there from the werewolf. And that is that all together. And so that is 2 tokens added on to each player. And since we're on to the store slot, essentially, this is where the players can now buy their items from there. So we've got store cards out from here. Essentially, we now need to shuffle these. So we are on the store segment. And place them down like this as well. Place 2 down on each. There we go. And then carrying it over for the weapons items as well. So we're giving these a quick shuffle from there, and then basically from here, we just place down the cards on here. From there. Now, basically, some of these do need a bit of reshuffling, so we'll just go reshuffle some of the parts, which in this case, we're just going to flip over. So we've got 2 Tommy guns from there, two blunderbusters from there. Maybe just want a quick reshuffle from here, and also add this one down. And this one, we do have an AK-47 from there. So there are your weapons from there. So in terms of your power cards, you do also have a light shield. Two artilleries, light shield, and well, what I meant to say, well, light shield, time stealer, 2 artilleries, and a healer and a time stealer. So with this being the first, so I'll go from there. Essentially, I am going to buy a healer card for my player, for player 1. So that's 2 taken off from there. In this case, my card has been discarded from here, so that does go back to normal. So essentially in this case, the player 1 does have 5 tokens. So in this case, they can now buy an AK-47, which in this case, that's what will be happening. So we'll buy an AK-47 from there, which does 3 token damage for 3 moves. Why is that from there? So, because in this case, it doesn't really appeal to anything for player 2, we're going to actually reshuffle the bottom part to show you, for example, what you like from there. So again, we pick up back the ones that we've already got from here. Just neaten this out a little bit. We take them back to the store slot. Now, essentially, we go from here, reshuffle some of the cards. So in that case, we'll place 2 face down again on each side and see what we get from there. Which is what we should get. Light shield and a time stealer. Which we do also have another light shield and artillery. And an artillery and another time stealer. Now, so in this case, the player in this case obviously was looking for. The player 2, does also have, in this case, 4 tokens. So in this case, what they can do is actually buy 2 of the light shield tokens from there. So which is what they are going to do. So these are only worth 1 token. So really, I'm going to use 2 from there, which is pretty good. And that is that for the store segment. So we are now on to the next zone. So in this case, the AK-47 lasts up to this point here, And because we got the Blunderbuster from here, it does actually last till we get to there, basically. So it activates from there, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 from there. That's how it works from there, and then that's that. So let's start from here. So we do have a Armored Zombie, which does have 12 health tokens in this case. Which again, like I mentioned, it doesn't count for the roll, basically the core roll. If we blow a 2 or we get a 2 or below, it doesn't do any damage to it. However, if you do have a weapon, it does do damage to it still, just its normal rate. So in this case, we're going to add a 3. So because it does 1, then plus 3 on that, so it does 4 token damage in total on that one altogether. And I'm also going to decide to use a healer for that. So that goes back into the pile there for the store pile, and then 5 tokens are applied onto the player from here. So, and then now it is Blade 2's turn. So they roll 5, which is a 3, and then plus a 4 on that, so that's a 7 altogether. So that's 7 damage taken off, so that's quite a hefty amount of damage. Which in this case, I'm also going to use 2 shield tokens from there. Now with the Armored Zombie, it does take 2 off, so actually this will automatically get taken off anyway, so I'll put this back from here. This also goes back into the other segment, and then also 2 shield tokens take her off from here as well. So roll again. So now, because we're on to the next summoner from here, we verse the wolf first, then the Armored Zombie afterwards. So in this case, the wolf only has 10 health, so does 5 damage from there. And then play 2. 8 damage, so the wolf is dead. And then we both get a token each from there. And then we move on to the next enemy. That's 12 health from here. So in this case, because it does 3, 2's taken off, which is 1, and then plus another 3 on that, so that's 4 health taken off. So that's 4 off that. So we roll this one again, which then so 4's already automatically applied from there. Now in this case, for this, I'm also going to use the light shield for this one as well. So, because that automatically is taken off anyway, because 2 health is taken off, so that pretty much just stays in there. And we'll put the light shield back into the slot from there. And then also that the Armored Zombie takes 2 off from our shield for the player 1. That's taken off from there. And then we can just carry on from here. So that's 5, take away 2, so that's 3, plus that 4, so it's 7 damage in altogether, which then automatically takes off 5 from there. So that is the Armored Zombie defeated, and the Armored Zombie offers for each player. And then also we are on a mystery slot as well. So it's up to us what we want to do from here. So I'm going to actually, so player 1, I'm going to pick one up. So now I have Tax Rat. So in this case, what this means is, so it steals up to 3 gold tokens off the player. So essentially now, the remaining gold credits I have from here, for player 1, is now been taken off. Which means that goes back under the mystery card pile, and that's already been used. So for player 2, I'm going to pick one up as well. So we'll also have Silent Killer. So what this means is essentially, so the enemy can't see for 1 action or 1 turn. Essentially what that means is that if I use this in a turn, so for example if an enemy is going to verse me essentially, or is going to attack the player. I can use this so that way they don't actually see me, so they only attack player 1, they won't attack player 2 or slash the captain. We've got that down from there as well, so that's pretty cool. So we move over to the next segment from here. Now in this case, this is the first one that we versed a boss zombie, which is basically the dark zombie, the dark enemy from there. Now essentially, your boss zombies are quite, that just means they've got a lot more health essentially, so they're a lot more harder to kill. And what you also get from them is what they called an evic token. Now an evic token is this here. Now essentially what your evic token is, essentially it's a permanent weapon token, and when you use this, essentially it will make the weapon that you got into your segment permanent. Now how this works is when you it depends on who beats the player, and whoever beats the boss zombie last, or whoever gets the last hit. So it doesn't matter if it's on 1 health, if player 1 still took that hit, they earn this token. If player 2 takes it, then that's that. Because player 2 in this case still has their weapon, if they beat it in time, before this gets started, they can actually still use this to permanently use the blunderbuster in this case. So that means what happens is they place it underneath it, and then they place the top of the card like that. So basically meaning that they keep it permanently. However, the downside to this is that you lose a weapon slot permanently, meaning that you will not be able to use that, so you can only use 2. You cannot store any more weapons. That is that. If you do want to keep the evic token for a bit, so you don't want to use it straight away, essentially it goes underneath your power-ups, and then any power-up just goes over top of that. Obviously it's not going to keep the power. It doesn't actually apply for power-ups as well. It only applies for weapons. So that's that from there. So that's what you earn if you end up beating it. So in this case, we've got ourselves a wolf, an inferno zombie, and a normal zombie that we are versing. So in this case, before we start, essentially I'm going to also add on the light shield to use from there. Meaning player 2 gets 2 shield tokens to use for now. So we can just set this up from here. So the inferno zombie does only have 7 tokens from here. And essentially we can start from this from now. So it takes 4 plus 3, so that's 7. So actually that is instantly already killed. Now, in this case, what I would like to mention, if you do insta-kill an enemy, you do also automatically get a credit. Doesn't matter from what, you do automatically get at least 1 credit from any enemy that you verse. So 1 credit is also applied. So in this case, we have just insta-killed the Inferno Zombie, meaning player 1 does also get a token. Okay, so we are on to the next part, which is the wolf. So what I mean by insta-kill is, well, essentially means the one player, so it can't be assisted or anything like that, the first turn the player gets, or the other player gets, basically, oh, no mind. Let's get that. So we're on to the next part there. We're on to the wolf. So the wolf does have 10 health tokens. So there we go. In this case, we start from here. So why I'm going to decide to use in this case, because it's the last time I can actually use this as well, the shield as well. So 4. So what I'm also going to use is I'm actually going to apply my healer automatically from there. So I do 7 damage altogether to the wolf. And also get 5 health tokens to help me survive from this. And then for my player 2, so it does 6 damage in total from there. So that's the wolf being defeated. Both get a credit each. Now we are on to what they call the Doctor Zombie. So this has 18 health tokens in altogether. So this has a lot of health tokens in altogether, really. So we set this up. So there's a lot of health from this one. So we start off from here then, essentially. So 4 tokens taken off from there, from the Doctor Zombie. And what I am also going to use, just after I've done this, 6, so 10 token damage automatically taken off from there. So with that, I'm also going to use a light shield on that one as well. It does not inflict as much damage onto me. So that is that one taken out as well. Now in this case, for your Dr. Zombie, it does also take off 3 health tokens. So it does take off a lot of damage. So that's all the shield tokens taken off for that. And also 2 tokens off that. And 1 health token off the other player. So in this case, it is now we need to get to 4 or above to beat the enemy. So in this case, we get 4 from there. So we have the last laugh from the first one. So that's that. Defeated. So the boss zombie is defeated. In this case, each player receives 2 tokens each. So the efforts of defeating the boss zombie. And now, player 1 also has an evic token. Now, it is up to them what they want to do with this. So in this case, player 1 is going to use it. So essentially what this means now, it doesn't matter how many turns, it doesn't matter what turns I've got, that evic token makes that permanent. So I carry that over even to the next zone. So I will keep that forever, but my downside to that is I lose my weapon slot. So now I only have 2 to use from there. So in case, we shuffle about for the weapon slot cards. And reveal which ones we get. So we've got MP40 and Abraham's cannon. We just reshuffle that, so we've got 2 of the same ones. Oh, there we go. We've got 2 Abraham's cannons from there. Now, since we did get 2 of the same ones again, if you do get the same ones again, it is, like I say, it is just a case of reshuffling to the point where you do get the weapons from there. So we place that one down there, and place that one down there, which were the next cards as well. So she's got revealed. So 2 of the Winchesters and 2 other Winchesters from there, which also needs reshuffling. Again, MP40 and a Tommy gun from there. So we'll just quickly shuffle these about as well. So we do have a healer and a silent killer from there. 2 other silent killers from there, which, like I said, we just got to reshuffle that sort of deck out from there again. Which will get another healer and a light shield from there. And we get an artillery and another silent killer from there. Now, in this case, it's basically down to... Now, in this case, so this is for the first play. So in this case, we do also have 3 tokens from here. So what I can do if I want to, I can gamble, actually buy a mystery card from this. So you can do that. You can buy mystery cards from the store as well. They are 2 credits. They won't show on here, but you can buy one if you want. But in this case, I am just going to avoid that for the player 1. Player 1 is going to go for just the healer for now. So in this case, healer's the priority. Fill that into there, and that will go here. In this case, they only have 1 token, so they're going to use to buy a shield token, a light shield. Now, in this case, for the player 2, in this case, we're going to actually gamble. So we are going to go for the gamble for player 2. Take 2 credits off there, and we'll go for a mystery card. So again, this is basically like you can get anything from here. So obviously, unfortunately, they got a shield breaker, meaning any shield that they have on or what they use will automatically get broken from using that. So in this case, I'm going to also buy another healer from there. Just 2 tokens from here. And then with the remaining credits that they do have, which is 3 from here, we are buying a Tommy gun. So that's it out from there. And now, move over to the final part. So now we are on to the final part of Zone 2. Now essentially in this case, we come up against the Zombie Doctor and also the Dragon. So in this case, the Dragon has 20 health tokens, so it only just has a little bit more basically, but in this case, it is immune to certain weapons. So it's immune to artillery attacks, the Abraham hand cannon, the Winchester rifle, and the spark bow, which the spark bow it comes into later iteration, so in the final zone, but within this, the guns that we do have are fine, we're okay. So we can now roll a dice. We get 6 plus 3, so that's 9 damage in total for the Zombie Doctor, so that's fine from there. That's 9 total damage overall. And plus as well in this case, I'm going to decide to use my healer. So I'm going to, in this case, I'm actually going to use my light shield in this case as well. So my light shield is going to get used and applied on. And for my, so we get 3, so it does 2 token damage from there, so it does 3 damage overall. And I'm also going to use my Silent Killer. So now what this means is the Zombie Doctor won't actually do damage to player 1, player 2, it will only do damage to player 1. So that will go back under the mystery slot card where this was originally came from. So usually just check the back of the card as the way to actually find out. If it's actually white on the back, then it goes back into the store pile. If it's got the mystery card pile, it goes into there. Now essentially that's the last part from that. So essentially we'll only take damage to player 1. So that's its health taken off from there. So in this case, that's that from there. So now we go back over to the player. So now the enemy does have 6 tokens left. Which in this case, we've beaten it. We have 9 tokens taken off from there. That's altogether it being beaten. So we already used that. So we'll pop that down into there. So that's that being defeated, and you get 2 tokens each for defeating the Zombie Doctor. Now in this case, this is the final one. So this is basically versing the Dragon. So the Dragon, like I said, it's more or less, oh yeah, as well as, since we've already beaten it as well, we do also get an Evic token. So basically in this case, because I don't actually want to use it yet, it just goes into the power-up slide, and then basically any power-up just goes on top of that, and when I do want to use it and get a good weapon, I can use it on any weapon I want. And so we versed the final enemy on this as well. Now it's 20, so there we go. So now we start. So So 4, so we do 7 damage in total from there. I'm also going to use a healer card on top of that. So that's my power sword from there. So that is my healer card. That means I get 5 health tokens altogether. Yep, so that's full health for my character. And then for player 2, plus 2, so it does 6 damage in total. Which I'm also going to use a heal in this case, which will add 5 tokens on for now. Which for the dragon takes off 3 tokens altogether. It takes 3 token damage off the player. So in this case, that's 3 taken off from player 2 and 3 taken off from player 1. Whatever way is suited. So now we need 6 or above damage to beat the dragon. Which at this point, we've already beaten it. So that is now defeated. So again, this means player 1 has another Evic token. So that will also keep into his power-up segment. So that is now Zone 2 completed. Now again, we are going to go over into the next zone. But again, you do have the option sort of whether you want to either fight each other or tally up each other's tokens. Now, your Evic token's worth as well, if you do tally up, is also worth 2. So it's 2 on each one, basically. And that's really about that. So other than that, we will continue over to the next zone. So in this case, now we are on to the final zone. Now, in this as well, I have actually already picked out, as the captain, basically, all the cards that are for this final zone within the mystery cards, essentially. So the idea for this one, essentially, is this is the hardest one. This is the final one. This is the one with the most boss zombies. And really, it's just really, I would say, quite a substantial bit of difficulty compared to the rest of them. Now, the captain does, so all former weapons, all former downgrades, and all former power-ups are allowed in this, as well as the store, so they are allowed in any of them. So really enough, the captain can choose out which cards want to go into the mystery card pile, just like the ones before that as well, and basically muddle them all together. So once you've sorted out, well, the captain's sorted out each 7, well, in this case you have to have 7 each basically for the final zone, so 7 cards of each for all downgraders, power-ups and weapons. Once that's sorted, they put them all together, shuffle them all up, and then put them into 7 pieces all together. That way it's all bundled up, even though yes, the captain knows what's in the cards or what they've chosen, they also don't know which pile it's in, because by then they've shuffled them, and then that's that pretty much. In this one again, like I said for the last one, when we started from Zone 1 to Zone 2 to Zone 2, Zone 3, all the health does get replenished off the player. So in this case, all the health does come back to the player, thankfully, which is really good. And any weapons that they do, and any weapons that they have, plus any power-ups, are also kept as well. So downgrades automatically get stripped; they get stripped off. And in this case, any credits and even any shield is even carry over as well. Now, because we bought this from the second last store in Zone 2, it gets carried over to this zone, but finishes on this zone. So it finishes on there basically. And so, more or less from there, once that's done, that's really that. That's basically it. So that's done from there, that is that. So, we add both of the players on top of there. So start from that point, move over from here to the whole way to the end. So the last 3 on here are your hardest sort of segments. So essentially you have up to 6 enemies that you are versing in one zone in these, which is very difficult, very hard. In this case, especially your Sentinel Knights and your Nightwalkers, which have the most health. So they have 30 health tokens in the game. 30 health tokens per one on each of both of them. So they are very, very hard to kill unless you have a really good weapon that can just basically wipe it. But in this case, we will find out. So in this case, we can start from here. So again, there's 2 wolves. So that's 10 health tokens in total. So because we roll a 3 and we get 3 on that, so that's 6. That's 6 health tokens taken off from there. And we roll this one as well. And for +2 on that is also another 6. So that's a wolf down. And we also get our credits each. And then we move over to the next boss, the next enemy. For which we do also get 7 from there altogether, so 7 token damage in total from player 1. And then also from player 2 / the captain is finished off with 7 damage, and that is also a credit each. Now in this case, we do also have as a mystery card pile as well, so I did actually forget to segment them. So just shuffle these really quickly. So we place 7 in each slot, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, so that's in 1. 7, and then that's 7 in there as well. So that is 7 altogether. So in this case, because we want a mystery slot, we can pick one up if we want to. So I'm going to pick one up for player 1. In this case, now I have Dead Man Rise. So this next move, I cannot use nor my weapons or my power-ups for my next move. I've got to 1 move. So pretty much what that means is essentially, again, no weapons, no power-ups. So essentially, it doesn't really matter for the Psychic Zombie that we got next anyway, which that doesn't use no weapons. But even if you got an epic token on that, it doesn't matter. It will just say you can't use any whatsoever. You can't use any weapons or anything else whatsoever. So we're coming up against a wolf in this case. So we will not be able to use it for the wolf. So, however, the player 2 does also have the option to go for that, which also has an AK-47, which this has also gone out of play. So, which is disabled. So by that one is also finished. And player 2 also has a AK-47, so they can use their weapons against the wolf on the next go. So now we move over to the next part. Now, who's roll? So again, can't use any weapons on that for 1 move. So 4, so it only takes 4 off this time. And in this case, so 6 damage, so that's taken the wolf out entirely. So that's a credit each to both the player, which they are also on a store slot as well too. And this next enemy, which is your Psychic Zombie, which no weapons are affected by it as well. So only takes 1 health off that, and then for that only takes 1 off anyway, and this one takes 2 off each player. That's 4 from there. So now move on to the next, so we have to kill it up to 10, so that's 3 there, so that's 7. 7 we need to kill it, which only takes off 1 there. That's 2 off there. And if we roll again, so it takes 3 off that, so now we need 4 or above to defeat the Psychic Zombie, which is actually the last one that you come up against as well. So we only get 3, which is a shame really. So we need 2 to actually beat it. There we go. So that takes 2 off there. That's that sorted. And then basically now we need to get 2 above to beat it. Now any amount will defeat it. So there we go. That is a psychic zombie also beaten. So now because we are onto the store pile, we'll move on to this next part. So we're going to quickly shuffle these about. I'm going to place these down onto the store slots from here. And that is for your store selectments. So that's your power select segments also completed. Now we just need to go over to the weapons and do the same from there. So just to quickly shuffle them about really quickly. I'm not the greatest at shuffling, unfortunately. There we go. So 1, 2. There's 2 there. Yep. So we've got an MP5 and a Blunderbuster in them. We've got a Blunderbuster again with an Abrams cannon. And a Winchester rifle, and now also a laser cannon as well. And for your final one, we have an artillery and a time stealer. Another time stealer and an artillery. And a silver bullet and another time stealer. Now, because in this one, in this case, like I say, we've already got 2 or more within the store segments. They essentially need to be redone. So if we shuffle them again, we'll do now there. And we also have 2 light shields from there. Now, what we have from here, so it depends on really what we want to spend then altogether. So in this case, for the first player, we do also have 5 tokens. So in terms of this, I could buy an artillery, which is what I will do. So that will go on top of one of my EV tokens at the moment, and I will buy 2 of the light shields. So that is altogether what I've got from there. So that's all my powers done. So when your powers are full, if you get a mystery card and you have another power up, you have to discard one of your other ones. There is no choice in that. You have to discard it, the other one to use it, or you put the card that you got back under the pile. And that is that. So that's that finished. That's all my tokens from there used for player 1. And now for player 2, since they also have 5 tokens, so it depends on what they really want to buy in this case. So they do also have the same amount, so it really goes down to what they want. Now in this case, because there's not really a lot of options in here, I'm going to also reshuffle the bottom part again. So I am able to reshuffle it for player 2. So player 2 is going to reshuffle the bottom star once again. Now again, like I say, you can donate other things such as weapons and power-ups as well throughout zone 2 and 3. So when we flip these over, we have a time stealer and a heavy shield, silver bullets, another time stealer, and a holy grenade and silver bullets. Now, silver bullets are actually really good in this case. So essentially what it does is it applies on top of your AK-47, for example. So this does 3 token damage. The silver bullet does an extra 3 on top of that, so that is allocated to be 6 damage and altogether if they buy that, which in this case they will. So they're actually going to buy this at the moment, which that is worth 3 credits. So they have 2 credits left. So in this case, they're not really going to buy anything else because there's nothing else they can really buy from here. So that is that, and then they will leave that from there. So now, move over to the next part. Now, on this part, so we're going to reverse a zombie and also what they're called a sentinel. Now, a sentinel is basically got the same health as the giant and the werewolf, but instead of doing 2 token damage, it does 3 token damage this time. So it does a lot more than what it would usually. So in this case, we're going to start off with player 1 in this case, which also now can use their AK-47. Now their downgraded has been removed from there, because it was only for 1 move. So in this case, they have 4 token damage taken off the zombie. 4 taken off there. Which is also, I'm going to use for this one, for player 1, the light shield as well. So two shield tokens used for 2 moves, so that's fine from there. And keep that on there. And pull that back. So we do also keep that for 2 moves essentially. And now we also have, which in this case for the silver bullets, don't have to use straight away. Do not have to use that straight away, so I can just leave the AK-47 for now just as normal. And I missed to respond with that as well too. So we get to 6 plus 3 damage, which is 9. So that has been defeated then altogether, because you don't get a token for that for the zombie. So now we are on to the next part, which is the sentinel. So we start again from here. So 5 plus 3, so 8 damage in total. So that's quite a lot of damage. So 8 damage there altogether. Plus as well, I'm also going to use another shield. Now again, like I say, you can use two at once as well. Like I said, your shield cap is on 10. So meaning you can use up to it as long as it's not above 10. So you're fine. So that's 4 shields in total that I've used from there. And then for player 2, we also have 4 plus 7, so that's 7 damage in total, which in fairness has also taken out the sentinel. Meaning in this case, for the reward you get from that, you see 2 tokens each. So would I want to use a mystery card from here? So I will pick one up for player 1, and I do also get another shield. So I do get just a standard shield where it gives me 5 shield tokens for 2 moves. And for player 2, which I'm going to pick up for, another AK-47. So this one is actually scrapped, and this one gets used. So that's actually this case. So within player 1, they also have in this case. So they have basically 9 gold tokens in this case. So they do have quite a lot of money to really go around with in this case. So they do have quite, like I said, quite a few. Essentially could go for a few things. They could even go for some more shields or anything like that. So in this case, now because we do also have some evic tokens as well, with them having 9 tokens, they're going to buy the spark bow. Now because this has 2 moves, what they also have is an evic token. So they can automatically use that slot. So once that slot's also been used, that is it. That is that sorted there. So basically, that is all of the player's currency right there, completely spent altogether. So what that means is now they permanently keep Sparkbow. So you may be wondering, sort of like, if you do also have more than 1 evic token and you do have multiple weapons in this case, that doesn't mean you can't use. So for example, you can still switch about in between them. Yes, you might have a weaker weapon, but you might still want to use it in some case, just in case. really enough. Or you can choose to get rid of it as well. So like I said, and that's really about that. So that's another slot already taken there. So for your EV token, you can sort of as well discard your weapons throughout as well. So yes, you've got a permanent slot. If you don't want that, you can get rid of it. Now the only issue with that is once you get rid of a permanent weapon, is you, like I said, you lose that slot completely. But when you get that, when you have an EVIC token already on there and you want to discard a slot, you will discard also that EVIC token. So that means is you will not be able to keep that. Yes, you get your free slot back, your weapon slot back, but you do not get your token back. That token's lost forever. You cannot give it to anybody else. So in that case, that is what the player 1 bought. Now with player 2 state, so essentially they also have 11 tokens in this case. So they do have more in this case basically. So meaning that they can basically buy more items. So they can choose whatever they want out of the slot from here. Now they already have an EVIC token already on one, but they don't have any spares. So essentially they can buy whatever they want. They can clear off a downgrader. So what you can do when you reach a star, you do, especially when you higher round, so specifically your second and your third zone, you can clear off your downgraders as well. However, it does actually cost more to actually get rid of the downgraders. So now with this case, it does also cost 4 tokens to get rid of your downgraders, whereas it costs 7 mid-game. So if you are not at star but in mid-game you want to use that as your turn, which you can, it will cost you 7 gold tokens to clear it. Now in this case, player 2 is going to clear off that, so that is now gone. So that's gone back under the pile and that's completely disappeared, and that's cost the player 4 tokens off there. So 4 tokens back in there. In the previous zone, in zone 2, it is cheaper. It is cheaper than this, but again, the rules still apply. So for example, it might be, like I said, cheaper, but it'll still be expensive still throughout the game basically. And so the player still has 7 gold tokens. So in this case, player 2 are going to buy 2 light shields. So that's 2 tokens off already. In this case, the player still has quite a substantial amount of money still left, so they still have 5 tokens left. It's up to them what they really want to use in this case. Now, because I've already bought something, once you've already bought something, you can actually reshuffle. So that means is, once you've bought something from the start, that's it, you can't reshuffle. You can't think, oh, never mind, I want to reshuffle after you've bought something. No, you have gone for this selection now, that is it. You can't change your mind now. That is that. So in this case, we're also going to buy, actually we can't buy anything else. So we'll leave that from there then. So that is fine. So we'll leave that from there. We'll move over to the next segment as well. So in this one, we verse a Inferno Zombie, a Sentinel, and a Zombie Doctor. So we start off with player 1. So with the Inferno Zombie, it has 7 tokens. Now in this case, I am actually going to stick with my AK-47 for now. Don't really need to use it straight away, because the fact with the Spark Bow, it actually does make the game incredibly easy. So I'm going to add a bit of difficulty towards myself and actually play it so that I'm using that really. So there we go. So that plus 3 damage does also 4. So it takes off 4 credits off the enemy. And then for play 2, takes off 4. Plus in this case, we still also have a silver bullet, which lasts up to this zone. So this also does 6 damage plus 4. So that actually does 10 damage in total. So that is completely wiped out. That's completely gone. So once that enemy is now defeated, move on to the next enemy. which is now the Sentinel, which the Sentinel also has 15 health tokens and takes 3 off the enemy rather than 2. Now in this case, because the enemy is a lot stronger, I am actually going to use my Spark Bow. Essentially, like I say, he's kind of there real enough again for these sort of moments where they do become a lot more powerful, the enemy. I mean, in fairness, you can also, like I say, you can keep your Evic tokens for different ones. Like what I've just done there, like I said, I used an AK-47. Essentially for the reason because it's simply for challenge. I mean, if the player wants to go through an easy experience and go for the Spark Bow, by all means, nothing against that. They all means can do that. But if the player wants to challenge themselves, well, they can still decide to use a weaker gun and still keep that Evic token, or even just use a different weapon. By all means, there's no thing against that. It's however the player really wants to go at that, really, or how they want to interpret it. So in this case, player one's going to go first. So do 1, so it does 8 token damage in total. So that's 8 tokens taken off. Player there in total. So now in this case, player 2 also rolls. So 2 as well as to do 6, so they do actually do 8 damage in total. So that is now also been defeated. So the Sentinel has been defeated. So that means from there that they also have 2 tokens to collect from that. So there we go from there. And now we face the final boss, the boss zombie for this one, the Doctor Zombie, so which also has 18. Here we go from there. So basically, reverse the Zombie Doctor. So there we go. So we're using the Spark Bow for this one as well. So we do that plus 7, so that does 10 damage automatically from there. That's 10 health taken off the player from here. And I'm also in this case going to also use my shield for this one. So for the player 1, the shield's now been activated. So now there's 5 additional shield tokens also being applied onto player 1's health. That's that from there. And then for player 2, also do 6. So it does also 6 damage, so that's 12 damage altogether off the enemy. So in this case, he's actually defeated the Zombie Doctor. So that is now completely defeated. So now they also have another Evic token. So like I said, because they don't have a weapon anyway, they just store it underneath the sword card for now for safekeepings. So that is now done, and now they also get 2 credits each for that sort of task. And so there we go. That's 2 tokens each. They also are on a mystery slot as well. Now in this case, for player 1, is actually going to skip it for now because the setup is actually pretty fairly strong. Like I said, we've still got a shield active on there. We've got spare artillery with another Evic token underneath that, and also a Spark Bow with an AK-47. However, I will take the chance and go with it on the player 2 side / the captain, simply because the health is incredibly low. So hopefully we do get a healer. We don't, however, we do get a Blunderbuster. So because we've just collected an Evic token, we are now allowed to apply that on if we want to, which I will do by all means. So that is now an Evic token added on to that. So now I can choose to use the Blunderbuster if I wanted to, which I will do in this case. So now we move over to the next segment. Now this is where things get incredibly hard from here. Now essentially, we do also have as armored zombie and things start to get a bit more hectic in this zone. So we are in the sort of last 3 zones for the enemy. So this also means now this is the last zone as well that player 2 can still use their silver bullets before it's completely scrapped. So now and then it will completely go away. But the silver bullets applies to all guns, so this includes the blunderbuster. So I will use the blunderbuster in this case for player 2. That way it makes things a bit easier when I start coming up against the bosses, since this part does get really intense basically. So starting from here, so the armored zombie also has 12 health tokens. Now again, with this one, the core damage is ineffective. Sorry, under 2. If you get a 2 or under, it is ineffective. However, weapons/silver bullets are still affected, still do effective damage to it. So this one with it. So we have 12 from there. We roll this and we use a spark bow for this case. So that's 2 plus 7, so that is... So actually, because it was a 2, no damage, but the spark bow still does damage by 7. So that's 7 damage taken off from there. And now is the next player's turn, which is 5 damage plus 6. So, well, 3 plus 6 is 9, so it does 9 damage in total. So that's that one done there, and receive a gold credit on each end as well for that. Now the next part is the Sentinel, which is the stronger boss in this case. So we'll go up against them. So with the shield as well, so this is actually the last zone the player can actually use the shield, so player 1. So essentially because they've already activated it in that zone. So because I've already used it there, when it moves to that one, that is the final zone for it to be used in. So 3 plus 7 is L, which is also 10 health token off the Sentinel. And now it is the in this case we also do 5 damage, which core damage would have been enough to kill it, but because we do 6 additional damage, that also finishes it off. So in this case you do get 2 of each token. And now we move on to the Dr. Zombie, which also has 18 health in total. So with the health with that one, with the last one, because we did the blunderbuster with 5 core damage as well, on top of that, we did decide to use that AK for this time. So we used the AK-47 as a disclaimer in this one. So we did an AK-47 in the last one. Now it's time for the blunderbuster, for the stronger one. So 6 damage, so that's 6 with 7 from there. So in altogether at that point, that's 13 damage altogether. So that's 13 token damage. So what? So now it's 5, 10, and that is 3 tokens taken off. So now it's down to 5 health. So in this case, the blunderbuster automatically does 4. Which is 4 and 8 plus 3, so it does 11 damage in total. So that is that finished. There we go. In this case, both players do also get, well, in this case, player 2 gets the evic token for beating the Dr. Zombie, and both players do also obtain 2 credits each. Now in this case, from the last one, I am also going to decide to use the shield token for this one, so I am going to apply that on to player 2. That's that one done. I'll move over to the next one there. Now we are on the Python now. So the Python in this case, so there we go. So in this case, the Python is also immune to the Blunderbuster. So that means the Blunderbuster is ineffective. So we're going to use the AK for this one, for this time being. So again, that's another reason why you would want to keep sort of 2 weapons, even though, oh well, I've got more powerful ones. Certain weapons are immune to certain enemies are immune to certain weapons. So that means that if I'm using, okay, I want to go and use a spark bow, well, you can't use a spark bow against that enemy because it's immune to it. And so if you got rid of your other weapon, you're kind of going to make yourself really hard for yourself to kind of get through to that enemy. So in this case, a good thing that we've also still got an AK-47 first player 2. And in this case, we still also have a silver bullet, so it will help us out immensely. So in this case, this enemy has 22 tokens. So there we go. So 2 plus 7 on that, so that's 9 damage in total. That's 9 all in total. So in this case, 6, so plus 6 damage as well, so that's 12 damage in total from there. I'm also going to use another shield on top of that as well, finally. Because in this case, if I didn't do that, then this would happen. Which the Python automatically takes 3 off of each player. So that's 3 shield off the player 2, and with player 1 takes a 3 shield from there. So that's that from there. So now we go again. So that's 6 plus 7, so that's 13 damage in total. So now the Python is being destroyed. So there we go. So the Python's been destroyed. And now the player receives 2 credits each again. That's 4 credits in total. Now the last boss we're going to come up against in this one is the Reaper. Still, but this enemy does have more health. It has 25 tokens rather than 22. So a few more tokens than the last one, really. So 25 health tokens in total. So now we begin to fight. So let's go on to this one. So play 3 plus 7, so that's 10 already taken off from there. So now it's down to 15. And the health, the output damage it does as well is also 3 token damage. Now in this case we are going to use this Blunderbuster because that is effective against the Reaper. So 2, 4 plus 6 plus 3 as well, so that's 7. So in this case we do 9 damage in total. And I'm also going to use this light shield as well in this case. Well, actually, we've already used it, so in that case, we've already used that, so that's fine. Which now means that 3 health is taken off each player. Now, sadly, this also means player 2 has died in this case. However, I do also still have another chance in this case. Within some of your zones, so within your first zone, you can also buy your players back through mid-game. So essentially what you can do is in certain zones and certain rules. The average rule is basically if they die, if they reach a stall zone, they're fine. As it gets towards the final zone, specifically in this one, the players do also have more of an option. So in this case, they have an option to buy them throughout the level. Since obviously the level does get harder, you do have that option pretty much open to you from there. So you need the 4 tokens from there, so you can buy them back from 4 tokens. However, the downside to that is they only receive half of the health back, and as well as they lose still the 3 credits and they don't even get any weapons. However, if you buy for 6 credits, they still keep the full health and they also keep the weapons. So in this case, in that case, we'll take that from that and take it from this. Now in this case, like I said, because they are dead in this case, so you'll always still lose 3 tokens. You'll still always lose your 3 tokens regardless from when you die. So in that case, that is now gone. Now in this also other instance, we now decide to roll for play 1. So that's 4 plus 7 as well. So that's 11 damage altogether. So that's it. That is now the Reaper defeated. Now in this case, because they're going to come back anyway. Well, actually, from here, more or less, they don't come back. Basically, now that it's been done, essentially, with the enemy being defeated, I'm now also going to choose to buy my teammate back, which will also cost me 6 of my tokens. So that is now 6 of my tokens gone, but in this case, the player is still here and they still have all their health. So that's that sorted from there then. So we do also have a mystery slot item on here. So it's up to us what we really want to do in this case. So pretty much, I'm going to collect one as well for the player 1, which now we also have our, need to pop this back under here, the light shield from there. So as that's sorted, there you go, pretty much from there, we are done. That's that then. So we do have his light shield from there. I'm also going to pick one up for play 2. Now in this case we do have another blunderbuster. Like I said, we can keep this if we want, or we can put it back under. It's up to us what we do, or we can donate to another player. Now because we've already got one permanently, it doesn't really matter what we really do with this. So in this case, I am actually for once going to put it back under the card pile. So we don't actually need it, so it's not really used for us. You can keep it by all means, but in this case, because we've already got it permanently, there's no point in keeping it. So we now move on to the next segment, which is also one of the harder zones, which is versing against your boss zombies throughout here. Now, essentially, this is the first one we versed, the Sentinel Knight. The Sentinel Knight has 30 health tokens, so it is immensely powerful. It's a lot stronger than the rest of them as well, and also its output attack damage does 4 red tokens are taken off per hit from this enemy, so it is a lot stronger than your other opponents. So in this case, we set this up now. We set it up for the zombie doctor, and we begin the fight once again. It's 5 plus 7 on top of that, so that is 12 damage already taken off. Move these suckers out of the way. And then we roll for that. In this case, also just mentioned, that is also now scrapped. So now goes back into the power-up segment. So this is also the last segment as well that you also have the star for. So in this case, that is that from there. Right, so we also have 4 damage as well, plus 4 damage. So that also means it does 6 token damage in total, which in this case is now defeated the boss zombie. There we go. That is now defeated. From there, and now because we also get another evic token for the player as well, they can also be sold within your power segments. Now in this case as well, I'm also going to decide to start to use my light tokens from there, my light shields from there. So that's 2 tokens also added in for player 2. So now we are on to the next enemy, which is now the dragon, which has 20 health this time. Has a lot more health than the Doctor Zombie. Also get 2 credits from this one as well, each player. Just 2 credits. Tokens from there. So now we begin the fight on this one. So it does 8 damage in total. Let's do 5 plus 4, so that's 9 damage also now in total. From that there. Now in this case, player 1 is now out of the game. So in this case now, they have automatically lost 3 elf tokens, 3 gold tokens from there. Now in this case, when we roll the dice here, so 6 plus 4 damage, which is 10, that's taking the health off from there. So the dragon is now defeated, and they are the only ones that claim 2 credits from now. Now in this case again, I am going to choose to also buy player 1 back for the 6 tokens to claim all their weapons back. So that's the 6 tokens already gone. So now that's been collected, you also, player 1 also claims all their weapons back. How's that from there? So now we come up against the Reaper for the next enemy. So we start again. Roll the dice. So 6 plus 7 damage, that's 13 damage in total from there. And also, we have player 2 going in for it with 6 plus 4 damage is 10, so 10 damage altogether. So now in this case, but it still has its remaining health. So in this case, it takes 3 health off the player. So its shield is completely depleted. And then the player's cell has been taken off from there to player 1. So we go again for player 1, which then also has 6 damage. So now the Reaper's been defeated. Both claim 2 health, 2 tokens from there. So there we go from there, and that is that. And they also claim another evic token for the player 1. So now we are on to the last part. Now we are on to the boss zombie of this, which is, well, the very, very boss zombie, which is the Sentinel Knight. Now, in this case, this one has 30 health tokens, so it's a lot harder than your other ones that we've come up against so far. In this case, as you can see from there, is a lot of tokens to come up against. So we shall begin. So in this case, we have 5 plus 7 damage from there, so that is 12. Plus as well, what I'm also going to do in this, case, just for the one time, is also use the artillery. So what this means is I do 6 damage. It's only for this one turn though. It's only for this one turn. So now that's already been used, I do also do an additional 6 damage. And in this case, we'll go up against with so because we do 4 damage, it does 7 altogether as well. Which means from there, it now takes 4 damage. So that's 4 health tokens from there. Six damage from there. So in this case, we've taken out finally the Sentinel Knight, which in this case actually gives out the most credits of all. So it gives 5 credits out for each player. So now we are on to the star segment. Well, I'm just going to quickly shuffle cards about from here for the weapons. So again, same applies. Put 2 on each one from there. So in this case, we do also have Atomic Gun and Bloody Buster, AK-47 and Explosive Slinger, an A-round cannon and another A-round cannon from there. Now in this case, this one does 9 token damage. I mean, it is worth 9 tokens from there altogether. Now, for the next part is the star cards in total. So if we just shuffle these about really quickly. So we'll place 2 on top of each. That is then also applied. So I've Silent Killer and an Artillery. Another Healer and another Silent Killer. And we have another Healer and another Artillery from there. So actually quite a good selection of stuff in the items at the start. So essentially for the for player 1 is actually going to buy a healer. There, so that's 2 tokens from there. Let's go back into the slot. And it's also going to buy an artillery, which costs 6 tokens from there. That's 6 tokens applied back into the store. And now for player 2, now essentially they do also have another evoc token. So now I'm going to buy an explosive slingshot. So that's worth 9 tokens. However, again, they do also have an evoc token. So that means now all their weapon slots are full, but now they do also have 3 weapons. And so now they can use the explosive slinger permanently. Or they would have just bought it and would have moved over to the last zone anyway. And in this case, that's worth 9 different tokens altogether. That's 9 tokens from there being used all in all in total. So then the other things we can still buy from here, which is another healer, which is what we're going to buy now, so that costs another 2 tokens. Now in this case, we are also going to buy, for this one, we're also going to buy the Silent Killer. That's also worth 3 tokens. Applies all that applied from there. So now that is it. That is the last time you will be able to use the store throughout all the zones, as we are now entering the final segment of the game. So this is the entirety of all the bosses, including the Nightwalker, who is the strongest of all the boss zombies. Now essentially what the Nightwalker does is basically, it has the exact same health as the Sentinel Knight, except in this case, if you don't beat it, it will double its output damage onto you. So what that means is basically, so for example, if its remaining health is 15, it does 30 damage, or if it's if it's an odd number, it is rounded up altogether. So meaning that, for example, if it's 13 if it's 26 and it's 13, but for example, if it's 27, for example, they have left, it will be then halved down to 4, so basically up to 14 damage from there. So the closest number in between, so because it'd be 13.5, round up to 14 from there. That's how it would work. So now we enter the final stage, and now we fight the bosses once again. So in this case, we are versing the Dr. Zombie. Because in this case, you still collect evoc tokens, but again, you can choose if you want to still use them or not, by all means. So with that, so we start to roll, which in this case we still have as 7 tokens, which is 2 plus 7 on that, which is 9 damage altogether. Put in this little corner here just so that it just separates from the remaining ones I do also have there. And I'm also going to use a healer in this case as well, so it already applies health onto me automatically. So that automatically gets used, I go back into the store pile, and then that also requires me to have 5 health from there, at least. And we move over for player 2, which also is going to use Explosive Slinger, which in this case 7, so it also does 9 damage in total. So now this enemy is now completely defeated. So that's 2 tokens on each. Now you still do claim tokens in the end as well, by all means. Now we move on to the next boss, which is the dragon. The fire should do 12 damage there altogether. Now for player 2. So we do, in this case, so we do 9 damage in total. So that means the dragon is now also defeated. Meaning they do also claim 2 tokens from there each. So now we're on to the next boss zombie, which on the boss zombie / enemy, which is your python. Now in this case, certain weapons are also immune to the python, so that they are the explosive shot, and the blunderbuster. So meaning that basically 2 of the weapons from here are immune, so the only player that can use player 2 is the AK-47, so the blunderbuster and the explosive slingshot is both immune to that. So in this case we do begin. So 5 plus 7 damage from there, since it is not immune to the spark bow. So 5 damage plus 7, so that's 12 damage in total. Which in this case, I'm also going to use the light shield from there. So it's also used from the mystery card. So it gets put back under one of the piles from here. So now, in this case, we are finished from that. And we also have 2 shield tokens to apply onto the player for player 1. So now we are on to the next one, so player 2. Which in this case we use as AK-47, meaning we only do 3 extra damage in this case. So we do 7 damage in total. Now what I'm actually going to do in this case is use the silent killer, so meaning it will not affect player 2, so only affect player 1, essentially with the output of the damage. So like I said, there's already the amount of damage already been taken off from there. So meaning it still has 3 remaining health, meaning it inflicts 3 damage onto us. So because we use the silent killer for the player 2, it does not take effect. And player 2 has also had its health taken off, so his shield's gone and it's got his health taken off as well too. And to finish it off, there we go from there. I did forget as well. Both players do actually get their evic tokens from there, from the last sort of encounter, from that, from the last boss zombie. So because player one's already got one in full, essentially, we don't need to use any more in that case. I don't need to use any more, and that's that. So that's the player's turn. So in this case, do 1 damage plus 7 on that. So meaning the Python has been defeated. In that case, you also claim 2 different tokens from that. Now, just for the sake of this, you do also still claim your evic tokens. However, in this case, which one's also they can't collect one since the items have already been filled. And now we move on to the Reaper. So now it's time to verse the Reaper. Now in this case, the only weapons that aren't affected by this, immune to this, is the Winchester Repeater and the Abraham's hand cannon, which we don't have in this case, so we are fine to use as we got those weapons now. So, rolling this. 4 plus 7 on that, so that's 11 damage already taken off. And also do 7 damage on top, whatever we roll, for player 2, which we do 12 damage from there. Which in this case is now taking 3 damage off us from there. And take 3 damage of us altogether. So now, Bear finishes off. 7 damage, so 8 damage in there in total. So meaning they do collect 2 tokens on each. So now that is also done, we are now on to the last 2 bosses, so we're on to the Sentinel Knight. So let's begin in this case as well. So that's 9 damage there altogether, which I'm also going to decide to use my artillery, so it does 6 damage in there in total. So now that is my artillery being used from there, so that's all my power-ups from that deck completely gone. And so in this case we move over to player 2, which in this case as well a 1, so 7, so that's 8 damage as well. Plus I'm also going to use the healer for this one as well, so that's 5 tokens applied to that as well. that has been used. Goes back into the store pile, where it came from, and that is that from there. So that's 7, so that's 8 damage in total, like I said. So from there, 8 from there. Now in this case, player 1 has now been taken out and has lost 3 tokens from there, and player 2 has also taken damage as well by 4 damage. So in this case, player 2 also goes first in this. So 7, so it does 10 damage in total. Plus, he's also going to make the decision of buying player 1 back with the 6 tokens. That's 6 tokens there. And now he is being brought back to life. So now that is sorted from there, so he's been brought back, and now, as you can see from here, the enemy is now defeated. So now that is the Sentinel Knight defeated, that's 5 tokens each basically, from there. And now we are on to the last part from here. The Nightwalker. Now in this case, the Nightwalker takes off 4 red tokens, and any silver bullets or holy grenades do no effect basically for this as well. On top of the fact that if you don't defeat after 3 turns, it will essentially kill you. So now, in this case, if we set this up first, so that is that all together. So let's begin in this final zone. So 2 plus 7 that's 9 in total. In this case it's 7 that's 10 in total. Which also I'm going to use my light shield for this as well. 2 tokens applied onto there. Yep, 5 from there. 5 from there. So in this case, it takes off 4 health. So it takes a 4 health off player 1, and 4 health off player 2, including the 2 shields we've just applied. So now we're on the last bit. So we're not the last bit. So now we go again from here. So 10. So on top of that, so we do 13 damage in total. So now that is completed. Is now been defeated purely from there. So you do also claim 5 gold tokens in defeating that boss as well. Now in your final zone, now essentially it is mandatory to fight each other in this last zone. So essentially the player can now choose. So the player can now basically go to the stores of Hyacinth. They will automatically be taken to the store segment, which basically is the last time they will enter the store. Now once they enter that store segment, essentially how this will just work is that the player will just roll against each other and just take each other's health off. So both health actually gets replenished in this as the final battle, so both enemies' health does also get replenished, and also they do fight each other from there as well. And so we can now begin to fight one another from there. So essentially in this case, we now basically start to begin final shuffle. So add in each one from there. As I was saying before the star pile, so we just quickly give this a shuffle. So in this case, we do have a healer and a silent killer. We do have also an artillery and a silent killer. And a light shield and a healer. Now for your weapons in this case, we have a Winchester rifle and an MP40. An MP40 and a blunderbuster. And a blunderbuster and another blunderbuster in this case, which quickly do a quick reshuffle on that. There. So an Abrams cannon and an AK-47 from there. So now we start to buy all our gear now for this next part of the level. So in this case, for player 1, I'm going to buy a healer, and I'm also going to buy a light shield. So that's also worth as well 3 tokens. And I'm also going to buy a silent killer. So that is now all the way from there 6 tokens. And in this case, for player 2, I'm going to buy a silent killer, a healer, an artillery. Now they do have the option also to reshuffle in this case as well, but because the store slot's actually still pretty prepped out fairly well in this case, we don't have to. In that case, we didn't. So essentially altogether, that has cost us 8 tokens altogether. That's that altogether. Now we move over now to the final fight. So again, in this case, all players' healths do get replenished in terms of when it comes to fight each other once again. We'll fight each other. This is it. So this is the final part. So obviously in this case, it still applies. Player 1 still goes first, then player 2. So in this case, you could actually do some serious damage from there, from applying from here as well. So 1 plus 8 damage from there. So that's 8 damage off the player altogether. And in this case, I'm also going to use a silent kill, so meaning they do also miss a turn on this case. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to add a shield onto my character. So I'm going to add 2 shield. And so in this case, the player goes against each other now. So that's 6 plus 12 damage altogether. So now that means player 1 has been defeated altogether, since now it has lost its health completely. So player 2 / the captain has won the game. So that is that. That is who has now owned the obelisk outer, and now has complete control of all of everything within the Warthog City in the Dimensional Collapse. I hope this has been very informative and very fun to watch, and really good to sort of get around sort of the mechanics around the game of what it looks like. I really enjoyed making this, and I've spent so much time in prepping everything from here, getting all the cards, planning all the ideas in terms of getting the weapon varieties, tweaking them as well, and just really just spending a lot of time on this as well. I really hope it's been informative, and I hope it goes really well. Thank you for watching. This has been Rack the Totem.